Hello, my friends, and welcome to a gentle Halloween story. A tale filled with candlelight, laughter, and the magic of autumn nights. Tonight, we'll visit a small town called Maple Hollow, a place where the air smells of apples and wood smoke, and every doorstep is lit by smiling pumpkins. In this quiet little town, one family is getting ready for Halloween. There are pumpkins to carve, costumes to make, and decorations to hang. There's the warmth of family laughter, the sound of leaves underfoot, and the glow of candles flickering against the dark. This isn't a story of ghosts or fright, but a story of home and light, and all the small joys that make Halloween such a special time of year. So, wherever you are right now, take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Feel yourself begin to settle. Let your shoulders relax and your mind drift gently to the rhythm of the story. Imagine the cool air of autumn on your skin, the sound of children's laughter in the distance, and the scent of pumpkin spice and candle wax in the air. As you listen, you may find yourself smiling or remembering your own Halloween nights. The soft glow of a jack-o'-lantern, the excitement of costumes and treats, and the quiet comfort that comes when everyone returns home, safe and happy, at the end of the evening. Now, if you're ready, let's step into the cozy little town of Maple Hollow and join the Hollow family for a night they'll never forget. The night of the glowing pumpkins. A town called Maple Hollow. When October came to Maple Hollow, it didn't tiptoe in. It arrived with a rustle of leaves and a sigh of chimney smoke, with evenings that smelled faintly of apples and wood. The little town, tucked between the hills and the river, came alive each year for Halloween. Every porch seemed to collect pumpkins by instinct, plump and orange, waiting like sleepy cats in the afternoon sun. Children skipped home from school with ideas bubbling in their heads, costumes to make, pumpkins to carve, and houses to decorate. And at the heart of it all was the Hollow family. Mum, Dad, and their 3 children. Ellie, aged 11, and endlessly inventive. Tom, aged 8, and brave when no one was watching. And baby Rosie, whose contribution to the season was mostly sticky fingers and delighted squeals. Their home on Willow Lane wasn't the grandest in Maple Hollow, but it had the friendliest porch and the best swing in town. And every year they entered the Great Pumpkin and Costume Festival with more enthusiasm than skill. The Gathering of Pumpkins. On the last Saturday before Halloween, the Hollow family drove to Old Miller's pumpkin farm, a place that seemed to exist solely to make people happy. The fields stretched out in neat orange rows, dotted with families hunting for the perfect pumpkin. Ellie led the charge, her wool hat tipped back and her hands already smudged with soil. "This one," she said every few steps, pointing to pumpkins large enough to roll home. Tom followed behind with a measuring stick he'd brought from the garage, checking each one as though he were a pumpkin inspector. Too flat, too lumpy. This one looks like it's been sat on. Mum laughed and pulled her scarf tighter. Remember, we need 1 each. 4 pumpkins only. Tom raised an eyebrow. 5 if we count Rosie. Rosie, wrapped snugly on Dad's back, responded with a cheerful boo that made everyone laugh. Eventually, they found their treasures. Ellie chose a tall, elegant pumpkin for artistry. Tom chose one that looked stubbornly lopsided for character. Dad picked a classic round one for tradition. And Mum chose a small, smooth one just right for carving a sleepy smile for Rosie. By the time they returned home, the car smelled like autumn, earthy and sweet. The carving evening. That night, as the first stars blinked awake, the family cleared the kitchen table and spread newspapers like a patchwork quilt. Mum lit cinnamon candles The radio hummed quietly, and the pumpkins waited patiently under the yellow kitchen light. Dad drew faces with a pencil first, thoughtful and careful. Ellie designed hers like an artist. Elaborate swirls and crescent eyes. Tom declared his pumpkin would have the scariest grin in Maple Hollow. Rosie simply clapped whenever someone said boo. The first cuts were tentative, then confident. Soon the table was a sea of orange shavings and laughter. The children wrinkled their noses as they scooped out seeds, strings of pulp dangling like silly spaghetti. Ugh, it's slimy, Ellie squealed. That's the fun part, said Dad, who clearly didn't believe it, but was determined to set an example. Tom, competitive by nature, decided his pumpkin should have vampire fangs. Because everyone does triangle teeth, he said. Mine's going to have attitude. When the carvings were done, they lined the pumpkins on the porch and dropped candles inside. One by one, the lights flickered to life. 4 soft, flickering smiles. The Hollow family stood together, warm breath clouding in the cool air. For a few minutes, no one spoke. Then Ellie said softly, "They look like they're talking to each other." And Mum whispered, "Maybe they're saying thank you for bringing them to life." Tom frowned at that, but only for a moment. Then he grinned. "Mine's definitely saying I'm the best pumpkin here." They laughed and went inside and left the pumpkins to glow in the October dark. The costumes begin. The next afternoon, the house turned into what Dad called creative chaos. Scraps of fabric, glue, glitter, and cardboard covered every surface. Ellie was making her own costume. A forest fairy with wings made from old lace curtains. Tom planned to be a knight, complete with a cardboard sword and a helmet made from a cereal box. Mum was sewing a tiny pumpkin hat for Rosie. who kept trying to crawl away with the spool of thread. Every year, Maple Hollow held a best costume parade at the town green. Families spent days preparing, neighbours swapping materials, and older children helped the younger ones. It wasn't about prizes, though there were always ribbons, but about laughter and community. That evening, the Hollow children tried on their creations. Ellie's fairy wings caught the light like cobwebs. Tom's armour clanked with every step, and he was so proud he barely noticed when his sword bent in half. Perfect, Mum said, smiling. Absolutely perfect. Even Dad joined in, rummaging in the attic for his old pirate hat. Dad, said Ellie, you're supposed to be handing out candy. Pirates can hand out candy, he insisted. They just expect a thank you in gold coins. The decorations contest. The Hollow family wasn't content with costumes and pumpkins. They had a reputation to uphold. For 3 years running, they'd entered the Best Dressed House competition and come second. Always second. Across the street lived Mrs. Penelope Crane, whose decorations were the stuff of legend. Her front garden became a masterpiece each Halloween. Ghosts that seemed to float, a cauldron that bubbled mysteriously, and a soundtrack of owls and wind that could make even adults glance over their shoulders. Tom called her the Queen of Halloween. This year, Mum decided they'd go all out. Paper bats fluttered from the eaves. Spider webs stretched across bushes, and strings of orange fairy lights looped around the porch. Ellie painted smiling ghosts on the windows, and Tom rigged a pulley system to make a cardboard skeleton wave from the upstairs window. On the evening of judging, the Hollow family stood proudly on their lawn. Neighbours strolled by, admiring each other's efforts. Laughter and camera flashes filled the crisp air. Mrs. Crane appeared in her witch's hat, carrying a tray of caramel apples. Well, she said, inspecting the Hollow decorations with mock seriousness, you've certainly outdone yourselves this year. Your cauldron still bubbles, Dad said good-naturedly. We're not sure how you manage that. A witch never reveals her secrets, she replied with a wink. The judges came and went. Later that night, the town announced the results over the loudspeaker in the square. Third place, the Hollow family, Willow Lane. The crowd clapped warmly. Ellie grinned at Tom. We'll get them next year. Mrs. Crane won again, of course. But she later slipped a caramel apple into Tom's hand and whispered, "You nearly had me this time." And that was almost as good as a ribbon. Halloween night. When Halloween night finally arrived, the world seemed to shimmer. The sun slipped away early, leaving a violet sky behind it. The Hollow family dressed in their costumes, while the scent of Mum's pumpkin muffins filled the kitchen. Outside, candles flickered in the carved pumpkins, casting golden faces across the porch. Ellie adjusted her wings. "Do I look magical?" Tom raised his sword. "You look like you could grant wishes." Rosie, dressed as the world's smallest pumpkin, beamed at them both. They met their neighbours at the end of the street. Children in costumes filled the road. Miniature witches, astronauts, superheroes, and ghosts. Parents followed with warm drinks in hand, greeting one another as if no time had passed since last Halloween. Mrs. Crane waved from her bubbling cauldron, her garden glowing with mist and lights. "Don't forget to come back for toffee apples," she called. The Hollow children joined the flow of trick-or-treaters. Each doorway was a new adventure. Laughing faces, bowls of sweets, compliments on costumes. "Thank you," Ellie called at every house, her fairy wings fluttering. "Trick or treat," Tom shouted bravely, holding his bag high. Even Rosie managed a tiny boo that made strangers smile. The night carried them along like a gentle parade. The air smelled of wood smoke and candy, and the moon hung bright and watchful above. When their bags were full and their feet were tired, they returned home. The pumpkins still glowed, keeping silent watch. Inside, Mum poured warm cider, and Dad counted candy with exaggerated seriousness. "Taxes," he said gravely. "Parents get 1 chocolate per 10 pieces." Ellie rolled her eyes. That's not how it works. House rules, Dad said, already unwrapping a bar. They all laughed, and the house seemed to glow as warmly as the pumpkins outside. The Great Pumpkin Festival. The following afternoon brought the Maple Hollow Pumpkin and Costume Festival, the highlight of the season. The town green was transformed with hay bales, strings of orange lights, and the scent of roasted chestnuts. Stalls offered apple bobbing, face painting, and pies of every description. Families wandered between displays, admiring the creative carvings entered into the Great Pumpkin Competition. There were pumpkins shaped like castles, owls, and even a miniature train. Ellie's elegant design earned admiring nods. Tom's vampire pumpkin made people laugh. Even little Rosie's sleepy-faced pumpkin got a special mention for pure cuteness. Then came the costume parade. Ellie fluttered across the stage in her fairy wings, twirling gracefully. Tom clanked proudly in his armour, bowing dramatically to the judges. The crowd cheered. Finally, the mayor, a round man with a fondness for dramatic pauses, took the microphone. And the winner of this year's Family Spirit Award, he said, goes to the Hollow family. The children gasped. Mum laughed in surprise. Dad lifted Rosie in the air. The crowd clapped and whistled as the family took a bow. Mrs. Crane clapped the loudest of all. Well deserved, she called. You brought real magic this year. Ellie blushed. Tom grinned so wide his cardboard helmet slipped sideways. They walked home under the soft light of the street lamps, ribbons fluttering, candy rustling in their pockets. The town was already winding down, but the air was still full of warmth, the kind that lingers long after the lights go out. The night after. That night, when the children were tucked in bed, Mum and Dad sat quietly on the porch, sipping cocoa. The pumpkins still glowed faintly, their smiles softened by the night. Somewhere down the street, laughter drifted from a late-night bonfire. It always goes by so fast, Mum said softly. Dad nodded. That's how you know it's special. From the upstairs upstairs window came a sleepy voice. Ellie's. Mum, Dad, can we do it all again next year? Mum smiled. Of course, sweetheart. Every year. The door creaked as the autumn wind sighed through the porch. One by one, the candles flickered lower until only a faint golden glow remained. The pumpkins looked peaceful, as if they too were drifting off to sleep. And in that small town of Maple Hollow, where laughter and light seemed to hang in the very air, Halloween settled gently into memory. A soft promise that it would return, as sure as falling leaves and warm cider. A candle for every autumn. In the years that followed, the Hollow family grew, and so did Maple Hollow's celebrations. There were new neighbours, new costumes, and new contests. But the spirit remained unchanged. Each October, Ellie, now older and taller, still carved her pumpkin with care. Tom, who eventually traded cardboard armour for real tools, built elaborate decorations that made the whole street cheer. Rosie learned to say "trick or treat" in the clearest, proudest voice. And Mrs. Crane, though she never gave up her title as Queen of Halloween, began calling the Hollows her royal family of helpers. Every year, as twilight fell and the first candles were lit, the town seemed to take a collective breath. The laughter, the costumes, the glow of 1,000 pumpkins. They were not just decorations. They were a reminder that even as seasons turned and years slipped by, some joys remain eternal. For Halloween, at its heart, isn't about fright or fear. It's about family, imagination, and the kindness of light in the dark. And somewhere in every town like Little Maple Hollow, a candle still flickers behind a smiling face, whispering softly and forever, "Happy Halloween." And so, another Halloween night drifts quietly into memory. The pumpkins have burned low. Their candles now just a faint golden glow. The laughter has faded to whispers, and the little town of Maple Hollow sleeps beneath a blanket of autumn stars. In the Hollow family's home, the costumes are folded away, the candy counted and shared, and the air still holds that gentle warmth of togetherness. The feeling that only comes when love and laughter fill a home. Perhaps you can picture it now. The porch light softly flickering, the scent of cinnamon still in the air, and 4 smiling pumpkins keeping watch through the night. Halloween, at its heart, is not just about costumes or candy, but about kindness, creativity, and connection. A night where families and neighbours share light in the darkness and find joy in the simple magic of being together. So, as this story comes to a close, let yourself rest in that same gentle glow, the calm after laughter, the peace after excitement, the comfort of home. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale softly. Feel your body relax, your thoughts growing lighter, like autumn leaves drifting on the evening wind. And as you drift towards sleep, perhaps you'll carry with you a little of Maple Hollow's warmth, the flicker of a candle, the smile of a pumpkin, and the promise that the best kind of magic is always found in simple, happy moments. Good night and happy Halloween.